Have you ever really truly stopped to think about what it means to be alive? It sounds like such a simple question, right? But once you start to dig in, you find this whole invisible world of nonstop work that's the real difference between what's living and what's not. All right, let's get into it and explore the fundamental processes that actually define life itself.
So let's kick things off with the most basic question of all. How can we be sure something is truly alive? Just think about it for a second. When you look at the world around you, what are the clues you use? Most of us just rely on what we can see, but as we're about to find out, the real answer is hidden on a much, much smaller scale.
It's kind of funny how intuitive these signs are. We see a dog running around, a cow chewing, or even just a person breathing in their sleep, and our brain instantly goes, yep, that's alive. We see a plant get a little bigger over a few weeks, and we come to the same conclusion. So movement seems to be the key, right? But is it really that simple?
Okay, this is where it gets a little tricky, because what about a plant that isn't visibly growing at this exact moment? It's still alive, for sure. And some animals can breathe so shallowly that you'd never see any movement at all. So here's the crucial point. If we only rely on what our eyes can see, we're going to miss the real story. So if it's not about the big, obvious movements, where do we find the definitive proof of life? Well, the answer takes us into a world that is completely invisible to the naked eye. That's right, the real nonstop action is all happening down at the molecular level. Inside every single living thing, molecules are constantly moving, interacting, and being rearranged. That is the universal sign of life. Doesn't matter if you're a person, a plant, or a tiny bacterium.
And this is a brilliant example of the whole point. Viruses are the ultimate edge case. Outside of a cell, they're basically inert. There's no molecular movement happening. They're like these tiny, non-living crystals. But the moment they infect a cell, bam! They hijack its machinery and just explode into activity. This whole controversy exists precisely because molecular movement is such a critical part of how we define what's alive.
Okay, so we've established that this molecular movement is key. The next logical question is, why? Why is all this tiny, frantic activity so absolutely essential? This question is what takes us from simply identifying life to understanding what it actually takes to sustain it. And it all boils down to one thing: maintenance. Think of a living thing, whether it's you or a tree, as this incredibly complex and organized structure. You've got organs, tissues, cells, and all the tiny components inside them. But the environment is always working to break that order down. It's a constant battle against chaos. And this is where we get our big definition. Life processes are basically all the jobs an organism has to do 24/7 just to stay organized and fight off that breakdown. It's about repairing damage, replacing old parts, and just keeping everything running. And all of that continuous work, it requires a constant supply of energy. So this maintenance work can be broken down into 4 main jobs. You need nutrition to get fuel in the first place. You need respiration to turn that fuel into usable energy. You need a transportation system to deliver that energy and other materials around. And finally, you need excretion to get rid of all the toxic waste that gets created. All 4 are absolutely essential. So let's zoom in on that first. And you could argue, most fundamental, life process: nutrition. How do living things get the energy and raw materials they need from the outside world? Well, basically, there are 2 main strategies. On one side, you've got the autotrophs, or the self-feeders. Think of green plants. They take simple, inorganic stuff like carbon dioxide and water and use sunlight to make their own complex food. On the other side are the heterotrophs, or other feeders. And yeah, that's us. We can't make our own food, so we have to eat complex things, plants or other animals that have already been put together. For autotrophs like plants, the magic happens through photosynthesis. And it's really a 3-step process. First, that green stuff, chlorophyll, absorbs energy from sunlight. Second, that light energy gets converted into chemical energy. And third, that chemical energy is used to turn carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. And that's the food that powers the plant. Now let's switch gears and talk about our team, the heterotrophs. We can't just go soak up the sun, we have to eat. So how do we break down that complex food into the simple molecules our bodies need for that all-important maintenance work? Well, say hello to the alimentary canal. This is our highly specialized system for processing food.
It's really just one long tube running from your mouth to the other end, but it has all these different sections that are experts at performing specific jobs to break down our food. The whole journey kicks off in the mouth, where your teeth crush the food and enzymes in your saliva get started on breaking down starches. From there, it heads to the stomach, where acid and an enzyme called pepsin get to work on proteins. But the main event, the real show, happens in the small intestine. This is where carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are completely broken down. Finally, these tiny finger-like structures called villi absorb all those useful nutrients, sending them into the bloodstream to be transported to every single cell in your body. And what's the whole point of this incredible journey? It's to get these essential building blocks. The final products, glucose from carbs, amino acids from proteins, and fatty acids from fats, are the very things our cells use for energy, for building new stuff, and for repairing the constant wear and tear of just being alive. It all comes right back to maintenance. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? Life is a constant energy-consuming process of maintaining order in a universe that always tends towards disorder. The moment that maintenance stops, the second that order breaks down, life ceases. So it leaves us with a pretty profound thought. We tend to think of life as a state of being, just something you are. But maybe it's better understood as a continuous, active process, a relentless, invisible effort to hold ourselves together against the forces of the universe. Kind of changes how you think about it, doesn't it?